I'm Pete Quinnell, and this is my review of WWE Payback 2023 in about 10 minutes. Ollie will be here later today to cover all the news surrounding CM Punk and his departure from AEW, but for now, let's talk about a WWE B show, because this sure was one. The show began with Becky Lynch versus Trish Stratus in a cage match, and there was a great video package as per usual heading into this one, with NXT Women's Champ Tiffany Stratton looking on from the crowd. This was a really well-worked match, made both wrestlers look great and had some really huge spots, like Trish hitting a Widow's Peak followed by Becky hitting a Twist of Fate, paying homage to the first women's cage match competitors, Victoria and Lita. The crowd was super hot for this too, which only escalated when the big spots came out, like a Stratusfaction nearfall, a top rope bulldog, and a huge superplex from the top of the cage after Trish had her legs caught on the top and was dangling upside down over the edge. All of this was great. I had a wonderful time watching it. While there was, of course, interference from Zoe Stark, and I would very much prefer there not be interference in a cage match, considering that's literally the whole point of it, it wasn't too egregious and only happened right at the end, where Stark broke up a pin after a manhandle slam, but then got slammed herself before Lynch had a second rope manhandle slam to Trish for the pinfall win. A really great opener. So now, considering that this match was delayed from SummerSlam, the question becomes, was it worth it? If this match were on the SummerSlam card, would it have been given as much time, as much of a spotlight to shine? Is it better for the match to be on a bigger stage at SummerSlam but have less of the spotlight, or be given more time to breathe on a smaller stage like Payback? I genuinely don't know the answer to that. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. The host of Payback, John Cena, then came out to introduce Payback after the opening match, which makes perfect sense to me. Cena then announced that he was going to be a special guest referee for the upcoming LA Knight vs. Miz match, and was then interrupted by Miz, and oh no, it's 2011 WWE again. They had a back and forth promo that was also very 2011 WWE, but it led right into the match, which was certainly a match. I thought this was a really good TV match between the two, but not quite the quality of what you'd expect on a PLE. The main point of intrigue in the match came when Knight and Cena started disagreeing a bit, with Cena pulling Knight away from the corner after a 4 count, so the two traded verbal barbs. But it amounted to not a lot in the end, as Knight won with the BFT, which is blunt force trauma, not bacon f***ing tomato, though I think the second option would be better. And after the match, Cena endorsed Knight on the ramp. Cool. Rey Mysterio faced Austin Theory next for the United States title, and oh my god, no, it's a Rey Mysterio match sponsored by Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Not again. I know people have had issues with the branded content integration in WWE, me being one of them, but honestly, the boards on the outside changing to a sponsor really isn't that bad. The Tron changing to a full-screen Cinnamon Toast Crunch logo, though, I think that's a bit much. Maybe that's just me. This was also a TV match, really. A solid one. Better than your average SmackDown match, but still, not quite PLE quality. Rey Mysterio retained after he hit a 619. Theory countered the follow-up splash with the knees up, but Rey countered his A-Town down into a roll-up for the win. The LWO came out afterwards and celebrated with Rey, and that was that. It was a match. I have not much more to add. Kathy Kelly backstage interviewed Becky Lynch, who was immediately interrupted by Tiffany Stratton, who apologized to her for calling her a former NXT Women's Champ in a promo on NXT, because she wasn't one. Becky said she'd see her soon, which sounds like a pretty great program for NXT. Up next was Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn versus the Judgment Day team of Damian Priest and Finn Balor. I think this match had the most intrigue for me going in, because I wasn't sure what avenue they wanted to take, and I'm quite pleased with the one they took. Pretty much as soon as the match started, the crowd started chanting, "We want tables," and I swear that might be my least favorite thing in wrestling right now. You'll get tables, just shut up for a bit. You're so entitled. And even if you don't get tables, it's still gonna be a great match. A table doesn't make it 5 stars. Just shh. Dominic Mysterio got involved relatively quickly, as anticipated, making it essentially a 3-on-2 handicap match, but KO did a nutty dive from the crowd through a table onto Dom, which looked like a really rough landing. KO also got busted open, so had a pretty vivid crimson mask going, which actually worked out considering he was wearing a Terry Funk tribute tank top on. KO and Sammy also did a hockey reference. I don't watch hockey. I didn't get it, but we have someone here at WrestleTalk who does watch hockey, so Tempest, can you explain it to me, buddy?
So Payback was in Pittsburgh, where the Penguins play, and Kevin Owens, dressed as Mario Lemieux, one of the greatest hockey players that has ever played the game, who wore 66, was one of the greatest players of the 90s, won 2 Stanley Cups, had to retire for a while because he got cancer, and then he managed to come back in miraculous fashion, and it was one of the greatest moments in the history of the sport, and he came back, ended up being a part owner of the team before they drafted Sidney Crosby, whose jersey was worn by Sami Zayn in this match, and they even played together together for a season. They lived together for a season during Sidney Crosby's rookie year, and Sidney Crosby ended up going on to become one of the greatest hockey players in the history of the sport as well. And he won 3 Stanley Cups with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and they ended up being one of the greatest franchises ever, which is hilarious because that franchise almost went bankrupt in the 2000s before Mario Lemieux bought it. It's unbelievable. These two players are tied together, and they're two of the greatest players ever, and they both played for the same team, which is ridiculous because why did they get to draft Sidney Crosby? They were so bad in the 2000s. They shouldn't have been able to draft so many good players. They got the first overall pick twice in 3 years. And the other year, they got the second overall pick. And those 3 players, Marc-Andre Fleury, Sidney Crosby, and Evgeny Malkin, they all worked together to earn 3 Stanley Cups. That's unbelievable. I just want 1 Stanley Cup, Pete. I just want 1. It's been almost 60 years.
Okay. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, buddy. I think he's got some issues. Despite their beef going into the match, Priest and Balor were on the same page throughout the match here. But even so, it looked like KO and Sami had the match won, hitting a stunner and a haluva kick, but the referee was pulled out by JD McDonough, who continues to try and get in the Judgment Day's good graces. Rhea Ripley then came out for good measure and speared KO through the barricade. It was awesome. So now it was essentially a 5-on-2, but despite those huge odds, Sami Zayn looked like he might have been able to pull it off, countering a coup de grace into an exploder and a haluva kick, but as he had the pin in, Dominic Mysterio nailed him with the Money in the Bank briefcase, knocking Sami out, and Balor rolled over into the pin to win the belt. A great match capped off with a great finish, inserting that Money in the Bank briefcase as the deciding factor once again. Judgment Day celebrated on the ramp, holding the Women's World title, both sets of the Undisputed Tag titles, the North American title, and the Money in the Bank briefcase. It was a really cool visual, and on top of JD McDonough weaseling his way into Judgment Day's good books, this story continues, and I'm all for it. I think this added a much needed layer to the story and can help extend it out without it becoming stale. You always need fresh stuff to help keep a story going, and this is fresh and new. But there are some ways to keep a story going that aren't as good. On a completely unrelated note, it was the Grayson Waller effect next with Cody Rhodes, where Cody announced that Raw has a new roster member, Jey Uso. Jey came out, super kicked Grayson, and that was that. Okay, so I think it's cool that Cody is the one who supposedly made it so Jey came to Raw, considering their history of the bloodline. It reminds you of Cody versus Roman, if that is still the plan to happen at next year's WrestleMania. But this, on top of the really underwhelming Jimmy Uso angles from SmackDown, or should I say Jimmy Uso, does not fill me with hope about the next leg of this bloodline story. It looks like the way they're going to extend the Jey versus Jimmy story, if that really is the plan for WrestleMania as well, is to just not have them interact. Now, before some comments say, but this is long-term storytelling. No, it isn't, because you're not telling a story. You're just ignoring a story until it becomes time to do it. If the two don't interact at all going forward, and then around Mania season things kick up again, that is not a long-term story. That is a short-term story told with a gigantic hiatus in the middle. I'm curious to see Jey on Raw, but I'm not exactly hopeful. Rhea Ripley faced Raquel Rodriguez next over the Women's World title, and if it were me, I would have had this match go on before the tag title match, with Rhea's threat on Raw being that all of JD needed to hold gold, and the fact that they'd already done the big JD holding all the gold shot after the match, it kind of made it a foregone conclusion that she was going to retain. They very well could have done the shock swerve right after they'd done the JD holding all the gold stuff, but I found it very unlikely. Granted, it was unlikely that Raquel was going to win anyway, but I do think that Rhea retaining first would lend more intrigue into the tag match, as she had secured her belt, held up her end of the deal before the bigger question mark of the tag match, but I digress. This match was alright. Once again, a solid level TV match, which had a TV level match finish, where Dominic Mysterio came out, held on to Rhea, but got dragged into the ring, so Raquel hit a power slam on him, which allowed Rhea to hit the Riptide for the win. It was a match. John Cena was backstage, next being goofy and doing comedy. He interviews Priest and Balor, who say they've got all the gold, so they're going to celebrate. Alright then, glad we established that thing that had already been established. Also, Cena said here that he was channeling his inner Lance Catamaran from Southpaw Regional Wrestling, but I don't think he remembers who that character was, because this was not Lance Catamaran. This was some nervous guy. And lastly was the main event of Seth Rollins versus Shinsuke Nakamura for the World Heavyweight Championship. I saw that there was about 35 minutes left of the show when the entrances began for this one. I didn't realize that 20 of them would be Seth Rollins standing in the ring while the crowd chanted. Seriously, this went on for ages. Also, Shinsuke Nakamura is very cool, and I wish he got more to do regularly. Commentary made sure to mention that this was Nakamura's first ever PLE/pay-per-view main event, and that to me sounds absolutely insane. But every time he's challenged for the world title, or hell, even the time he won the Royal Rumble, it wasn't the main event. So good on him, I suppose. The Great Muta was also in the crowd here, which was a nice touch considering Nakamura wrestled him in Noah at the start of this year. The story of this match was, of course, Seth's back. It had been mentioned in the lead up to the match, and Shinsuke constantly worked it over in this match. What I really liked here was because it was the back being worked over, even more simple moves like a suplex held so much more weight because it was all targeted specifically. Though with this much back offense, I think Roderick Strong would be crying at home. You know, more than normal. This psychology permeated through the whole match, whether it was Rollins changing his mind about hitting his superplex Falcon Arrow combo into a top rope Rana to protect his back more, or Seth attempting to stand up and power out of an armbar, but collapsed again because his back gave out. It all worked together seamlessly. Shinsuke hit a Kinshasa to the back of the neck, but as he waited for Seth to get up so he could hit one to the front, Seth passed out, which the camera missed. Sort it out, Kevin. But after some nice back and forth counters and roll-ups, Seth hit the stomp out of nowhere and retained. And that was that. Rollins won clean, a very fun match and a very good story. A great way to end. Not earth-shattering, but a very good match. So that was Payback. It was alright, wasn't it? Becky versus Trish was great, the main event and the tag match were both really good, and everything else was fine, I guess. Nothing bad on this one, but nothing outstanding either, which makes me think this is probably like a high 3 or a low 4 out of 5, for WWE PLE standards, that is. Now check out the news surrounding CM Punk's firing from AEW.
Let's cut to the chase, everyone, because AEW have released a statement that CM Punk has been fired by All Elite Wrestling.